Can Royal Challengers Bangalore lift the cup in 2024, or will they experience another heartbreak all over again? Well, it's nothing new for their fans, but they'll certainly hope that this is their year. So, in order to find out, let's have a deep analysis over their squad, their likely playing 11, and the differences from last season. So, going through the entire squad, you can actually see some big changes. There's no more Harshal Patel, Wanindu Hasaranga, and Josh Hazelwood, but instead they've been replaced by the likes of Yash Dayal, Lockie Ferguson, and Alzari Joseph. And it's a pretty interesting move by the management that they decided not to go with a foreign spinner in the auction. I mean, is that going to backfire? Because they instead picked up Tom Curran, who I see providing no value at all. So if you were to make a likely playing 11, you would probably start off with Virat Kohli and Faf du Plessis. I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? They've been the most consistent pair in the IPL so far, and last season, they scored about 900 plus runs as a partnership in the league stage, which was only followed up by Ruturaj Gaikwad and Devon Conway at 700. So there's a massive gap between them. Some of you may be concerned over Faf's form and the fact that he hasn't played too much T20 cricket recently, but he's going to be batting on better tracks in Bangalore with smaller boundaries, and he's the captain of the side, so he will lead from the front. And when it comes to Virat Kohli, there's no discussion needed. So let's just move on to number 3, which will be Rajat Patidar, and I think he's the most important piece to glue this whole squad together. He was a big miss for them last time around, and it shows because they tried fitting so many players in that number 3 spot, from Mahipal Lomror, Shahbaz Ahmed, Anuj Rawat, and even Michael Bracewell, and they got about 7 matches in total, and none of them stood up to the plate. And because of those poor performances, the team management had to take a call, and they ended up pushing Glenn Maxwell to number 3, which left the middle order to be very weak. But this time around, with Rajat Patidar back, Glenn Maxwell is going to have a lot more confidence batting at number 4, because he can stabilize the innings if an early wicket falls, and there's also Cameron Green below him to strike it big if he does end up losing his own wicket. Maxwell also gives a few overs of off spin as well, and this season he might have a different role to play because he is almost the lead spinner in the attack because there's not too many experienced names around. Now at number 5 for me is going to be Cameron Green. Now I know he scored most of his runs for Mumbai batting at 3 or 4, but the management has already confirmed that he will be batting in the middle order to give it that much needed firepower. Unfortunately, last season, neither did Mahipal Lomror nor Dinesh Karthik step up with the bat, and that's why they ended up going into that trade window looking for exactly what Cameron Green provides. He can also bowl a few overs of pace as well, and on a batting track like Bangalore, he could cause some issues getting that extra bounce. Now we move on to number 6, which will have to be Dinesh Karthik. Now I know he was very underwhelming last season. I think he only scored about 140 runs, striking at about 130 with an average of just 11, which is a massive stat because it means that he was not finishing games for the team, which is his primary role in the side. A lot of people wanted him to be removed from RCB because he didn't add any value, and that's fair criticism, right? But this was the same man who scored so many runs in 2022, performing in every situation at any stage of the game. I mean, if you just have a look at the stats, he scored 330 runs, striking at 183 with an average of 55. That's ridiculous for the position that he comes in, and I'm glad that the RCB management had some faith in him and didn't drop him after a single bad season. But he will have to perform this time around, otherwise he will be replaced with the likes of an Anuj Rawat. So now when it comes to number 7, there are actually a few options. You have a Mahipal Lomror, an Anuj Rawat, and a Suyash Prabhudesai, and I've decided to go with Anuj Rawat. He didn't really perform well in the top order, but last time around he had 3 matches batting at number 7 towards the end of the season, and he did pretty well considering the circumstances. He got a 23 of 15, a 29 of 11, and in all 3 of these games he was actually not out, which means he was taking them over the line, which is very important from a number 6 and 7 batsman. Suyash and Lomror don't have great stats from last season, and I can only go based off what I've seen, so Anuj Rawat at number 7 for me. So number 8 is where the bowling starts, and this is where I'm going to pick a Mayank Dagar. He's a left-arm orthodox spinner who was traded in from SRH for Shahbaz Ahmed. He doesn't have a lot of stats, which means he's a bit of an unknown quantity, but I do remember that there was this one game last season between RCB and SRH where Faf and Virat was blazing it against every bowler, but Mayank Dagar was the only one able to restrict them, going at about 25 runs in his 4 overs, so they probably saw the potential in him there and picked him up. I think that one of the reasons he was traded in was because Shahbaz was not providing anything with the ball. I mean, I remember Faf being so hesitant on giving him the ball, and whenever he did, he got smacked big time. If you look at the stats, he only bowled 7 overs in 10 matches, picking up 1 wicket at an economy of 13.6, which is insane. I think there was every reason to drop him, and he was not providing anything with the bat either, so yeah. So when it comes to number 9, it will be Mohammad Siraj, who is probably RCB's best bowler and the leader of the pace attack. I mean, he's just absolute quality, right? He'll come in the power play, swing the new ball up front, pick up a few wickets, and then come back for one in the middle and one for the death. So yeah, let's just move on to number 10, which could be a cause of concern for the management because they have a few tough decisions to make. With only one foreign slot remaining, they can only play one of these three fast bowlers, whether it's a Lockie Ferguson, an Alzari Joseph, or a Reece Topley. And honestly, I could see reason to be playing either of these three because they all provide a different angle to work with. Lockie Ferguson's the most experienced bowler, and he's coming off a good series versus Pakistan and Australia, and he did really well, picking up loads of wickets at a very low economy as well. Then there's an Alzari Joseph, who's a bit more of an aggressive player as he tries to push the batsmen on their back foot as much as possible. And then there's Reece Topley, who's a tall left armer, swings the ball up front, and then comes back for the death. So it's going to be a tough decision, but what I think they might end up doing is playing an Alzari Joseph in the first few games because he does have that 11 crore price tag, right? So when it comes to number 11, they actually have a few options because they do need an Indian player. So whether that's a Yash Dayal that they bought in the auction for 5 crore, a Vaishak Vijay Kumar who picked up 4 wickets in one game last season, so he's shown some talent, and then there's an Akash Deep who's coming off a great debut test match, so he could just translate that into the T20 format, but I would probably go with Yash Dayal, pairing him up with a Lockie Ferguson and Mohammad Siraj, because Yash Dayal can bowl in the power play, swings the ball up front, and then Lockie Ferguson can handle the middle overs and the death as well, bowling those Yorkers. So that's how I would make my 11. Some of you may be laughing at the thought of playing a Yash Dayal after he got smashed by Rinku Singh for 5 sixes, but don't judge one player based on one performance. I mean, Rinku Singh has been smashing every bowler and opposition in the international scene, so it's not some small player who's been doing the damage, so just give him a chance. So far in their spin department, they have a Mayank Dagar and a Glenn Maxwell, but if they do need an extra spinner, for places like Chennai and Lucknow, then they can play either a Karan Sharma or even a Himanshu Sharma for that matter, because in the final match versus GT last season, Himanshu actually got his debut, so he might just get a few more opportunities this time around. So this is the combination of 12 that RCB will be looking to play throughout the season. They have 4 fast bowling options, 3 spinners, and 7 genuine batsmen who can wreak havoc in a place like Chinnaswamy. So the only cause of concern could be that spin department, which is why I don't understand why they didn't grab a foreign spinner in the auction. I know it's practically impossible to play a foreign spinner when 3 out of your 4 overseas players are batting in the top 5, but it's always good to have one. And I thought somebody like a Keshav Maharaj who was available could have been a good buy because he's the lead spinner of the South African attack and he did really well in the World Cup and the SA20 that followed, so he could have been that option, but instead they went for a certain Tom Curran that I see getting no games at all. So I mean, how are you going to play a Tom Curran when you have 3 foreign fast bowlers and you're not able to fit even 2 of them in a single team? Looking back at 2023 for RCB, it was a season trying to make use of backup resources as Hasaranga and Hazelwood weren't available for the first half of the season, then Reece Topley got injured in the first match itself, and then Rajat Patidar was ruled out from before the season even began. So I think they will be better off this season because it's a long tournament and they have plenty of backups. Whether you look at that Indian bowling depth from Akash Deep, Vaishak Vijay Kumar and Yash Dayal, they have 3 foreign pacers, and there's also Will Jacks who can slot in that top order whether a Faf or a Glenn Maxwell or even a Cameron Green gets injured, so they have plenty of depth. In terms of whether RCB has it in them this season, I certainly do think so. Their bowling department does look a little weak on paper, but that's mostly exaggerated by the fact that they play 7 games at the Chinnaswamy with such small boundaries. But for them to do well and go deep into the playoffs and maybe even win their first championship title, they'll have to depend on their young Indian talent to step up.